morning from the U.S. It's 8:30 in the morning here. I know it's 4:30 there. So I want to say good morning to everyone, and I've been so excited to spend this time. This is what I do. I've been doing this for 27 years in the health and wellness industry, and most of my time has been spent with professional athletes. I've worked with Major League Baseball, almost every team in Major League Baseball I've worked with. I've worked with most of the teams in the National Football League, the NFL. I've worked with a lot of the teams in the NBA, National Basketball Association, but I've also done a lot of work with the Olympic teams around the world. I've done a lot of work with the Olympic teams in a lot of the countries, Asian countries. I've been Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, all of the different places around the world. And I've been very, very blessed to be able to work with athletes. And that really started about 27 years ago when I started working with the New York Yankees. So many of you probably know the name New York Yankees. They're a very, very popular team here in the U.S., and I think they're probably popular all around the world. I got to travel with them to Japan one year, and as we were on the airplane flying to Japan for an opening season game, I was able to sit by some of the greats like Yogi Berra and Reggie Jackson, and a lot of these people I've been able to learn a lot from. And over time, as I'm working with these athletes in the nutrition field, one of the things that was hardest for me to be able to accomplish from a nutritional perspective was to get that athlete or those athletes in an alkaline state. Now, that's very important, and that's really the whole premise of what this webinar is all about, is why do we want to be more alkaline as opposed to acidic from an athletic perspective? Now, from a general health perspective, which we'll do at another time, anything that we can do to reduce that acidity also equally reduces our risk of cancer and diabetes in particular. Those are two very acid-based diseases. So we're going to talk about the health side to general public at another time. Today, we're going to talk more so about how do we reduce and why do we reduce that acidity and how does it help us from an athletic perspective. So in the years of working with these teams, athletes, organizations, 27 of the Major League Baseball teams in America, many Olympic teams, professional athletes all around the world, it was impossible, nearly impossible for me to get those athletes alkaline without changing their diet to eating almost all vegetables. Now, if any of you have ever tried to eat an alkaline diet all day, every day, eating vegetables that are very alkalizing and alkaline, that's very hard to continue to do every single day, especially as an athlete. Would be a 3-game series in, say, Arizona, and then we're on an airplane going somewhere else, and we don't get into the next city until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's very hard to find alkalizing vegetables, and the athlete's just not going to do it. So the hardest thing I had was to get these athletes alkaline. Athletics produce naturally, because we put our body through stress. As many of you know, athletics produces what's called lactic acid and uric acid. Both of those are acids, and I'm going to get into the science here in a minute, but as our acid levels go up, our oxygen levels go down. That's one of the things that we're learning. As an athlete, there aren't many things more important to us than oxygen, right? As an athlete, if we could have more oxygen when we're out on that field, or in the gym, or doing cardio, or on the court, if we have more oxygen, we can do the same performance a longer period of time. It just makes very simple sense. So when I was with the Yankees and all of a sudden a company from Japan came to the US and they started talking about this alkalizing water, and then they approached me because of my involvement with professional sports and athletics. I then flew out to California, met with the scientists with the company that was creating this product here in the US, and I started to learn real quickly that, okay, wait a minute. If we can change the largest component of the body, which is water, right? Our body's made up mostly of water, 80%, let's just use 80 as an average, 80% water. And so I thought to myself, if this is really alkalizing water, and if I can find the science and make sure that this company is valid and really creating alkalizing water, I thought to myself, okay, if 80%, so let's look at my body, or your body is made up of 100%. If 80 of that 100 is made up of water, then what is the highest percentage that can come from the food that we eat? 20%. Max. If 80 of my 100 is water, the most the rest of it can be is 20% coming from the food we eat and other things. 80%, 20%. But we focus more and more and more on food, at least here in the US. Everything is about diet, low calorie, low fat, high protein, high carb, low carb, intermittent fasting, protein diet, paleo diet. Everything's about diet, but we don't hear enough about the water that we drink. The largest component, the 80% we're made up of, we don't talk that much about. So it was at that time I really dove in and I started really researching and looking at this alkalizing water. Now, let me make a very important point here. If there's anything at all that I share today, here's probably the most important thing you can take away from this. Alkaline water and alkalizing water are two completely different things, guys. Let me rephrase that. Alkaline water and alkalizing water are two completely different things. The whole world is jumping on this alkaline water bandwagon. Here in the US, you can't go in a store that they're not selling alkaline water. They're selling it by the quart. They're selling it by the gallon. They're selling it by this. Every liquid aisle in all of our stores has alkaline water. Alkaline water, alkalizing water, two completely different things. We can take any water, filtered, unfiltered, and put a little tiny, just a couple of granules of magnesium or potassium or calcium, just a tiny little bit, and all of a sudden we have alkaline water. That's not going to change the pH of the body. That's not going to help us become more alkaline. Electricity and minerals are required for electrolysis. Electrolysis is what changes the molecular structure of the water we consume. It does it exactly like nature does up in the mountains. When the lightning hits the water, lightning is hitting the water up in the mountains thousands of times per second around the world. And that lightning hits the water, bounces off, and changes the structure of the water to an alkalizing form. That is what is required to change the pH of our tissue sites in our body. So we take that and apply it to an athletic perspective. As an athlete, we start working out. Let's say we're in the gym. We're doing bench press, push-ups, squats, or cardio. Whatever you're doing, that produces what's called lactic acid, uric acid. As soon as the acidity starts to rise, the body says, oh, this acid, we know acid reduces our ability as an athlete. So I want to reduce that acid. Our body is smart enough to know that. So the body then says, what can I take from my body to neutralize that acid? It starts robbing 5 things. As soon as the acid goes up, lactic acid, uric acid, hydrochloric acid, whatever acid it is, as it starts going up, the body starts robbing calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and oxygen. As an athlete, the last thing we want robbed is calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, which are our electrolytes, right? You all understand and know electrolytes. We do electrolyte replacement drinks, which I'll talk about in a minute. Worst thing you can do, electrolyte replacement drink in the form of sports drinks. But as that acid goes up, magnesium, sodium, potassium, those minerals are robbed from the body. Where do you think it's going to start getting calcium from? The bones. So we know that as acid goes up, risk of osteoporosis also goes up. From an athletic perspective, it's robbing those minerals, those electrolytes, and then oxygen. And the more oxygen it robs from our bloodstream, from our tissue sites, the faster we hit what we here call the athletic wall. You're going, you hit the wall, meaning you can't go anymore. That's oxygen depletion, much of which is being utilized to neutralize that acid. So here's what we did. We actually did a study here, right here in my home state of Arizona. I took 18 athletes from the NFL, National Football League, took 18 athletes, and I'm actually going to show a screen share real quick of some of the ball players can you see that? So this is just showing some of a few of the athletes that we've worked with. So give me just a second here. Just showing just a few of these athletes. Okay. Now these athletes, this is the clinic here in Arizona. And when we started working with a lot of these athletes from the NFL, obviously we needed to do a study that showed how we can reduce that lactic and or uric acid, and can it be done simply by water? We believed it could. So we took 18 NFL players, we put a third of them on whatever bottled water they wanted to drink. Because we all think that bottled water is great. So a third of them got whatever bottled water they wanted. A third of them had to drink an electrolyte replacement drink. In this case, it was a Gatorade or a Sports Aid. It was a sports replacement, an electrolyte replacement drink. And then the other third had to drink the alkalizing Kangen water. Alkalizing water, not alkaline water, or alkalizing water. And what we did is we brought our medical doctor in and we did some blood lactate testing. So before the workout started, we got a baseline on every one of the athletes, what their lactate levels are in their blood. And then for the next month, we would do a test at the beginning of the workout. We'd do another blood test halfway through the workout. We'd do another blood test an hour after the workout. And this was at an NFL pre-combine camp. So all the athletes were going through their typical tough, rigorous workouts. Without going into detail, I can tell you that the group that did the worst was the group that was on the electrolyte replacement drink. Why? Number one, because of the sugar that are in those drinks. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the highest group by more than double recovery time of lactic and uric acid being flushed out of the bloodstream and out of the body was the group drinking the Kangen alkaline water. By far. Here's why once we started doing the analysis and looking at it. So most of the time, as an athlete, when that lactic acid starts to rise, we say, oh, we know that acid is going to rob calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, the electrolytes, so we want to replace those electrolytes, and we do it with a sports replenishment drink. They all have sugar. And what we found is that the sugar in those drinks is so acidic that it caused a more rapid increase in lactic acid than it was replenishing from the electrolyte minerals in the drink. So they actually caused more lactic acid buildup. And as lactic acid goes up, remember I told you those 5 things, those minerals we talked about, but oxygen. So what I was able to show my athletes is we can almost say, so for example, if you were playing against a team that got to have an oxygen mask on their face, and you were playing against that team all of the time, they would have a benefit. We all agree? If you could have an oxygen mask all the time from an athletic perspective, you could perform your sport longer than someone that doesn't have an oxygen mask. We're doing the same thing by leaving more oxygen for the athlete to use for oxygenation of our tissue sites, which allow our performance to be performed at a longer period of time. So there is no doubt. Now, this was about, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago when we did this. Since that time, we have been able to show study after study after study after study that alkalinization from ionized water, not alkaline water. I'm going to I just pound that in everyone's head. Alkaline water is fake head water. Alkalizing water is energy, electricity, vibrance. You all know that we get energy from the earth and energy from the sources and energy from the sun, and energy is important. There is no energy in dead alkaline water. There is absolutely active hydrogen in electrolyzed water. So what we're talking about here is a technology that Bogdan and Igor they're going to share more and more and more about in the training portions where you can see and look and test and feel and look at all that stuff. But we have a technology now. We're able to take water that's dead, that's may or may not be filtered, but we filter it. Then we run it through this technology that goes up and down, up and down, up and down over these plates of titanium, magnesium, and we make sure that there's calcium, sodium, potassium, all of the electrolyte minerals in that water. Then we run electricity back and forth through it. And as we run electricity through it, it changes the structure of that water, and it comes out in our glass. Those athletes that drank that, their lactic acid and uric acid levels were significantly lower. Their blood oxygenation levels were significantly higher. Their recovery time was better than half. And so we took that throughout the sports organizations here in the United States, high school, college, professional, and we're seeing athletic performance with athletes. I had a professional athlete in here in my store just yesterday talking about how his recovery time was so much better just since he started drinking alkalized, electrolyzed water, which has only been about 3-4 months. Some of the biggest names in sports, from Kurt Warner, Hall of Famers, Reggie Jackson, these lists of names go on and on and on, that are saying, man, when I drink this water, it's absorbed so much quicker and we can utilize it, and it leaves those electrolyte minerals other that our competitors are drinking sports drinks for, and we're able to reduce that lactic acid, uric acid, and other acids that go within the body. So what I do, people ask me all the time, they're like, well, Shan, so when you go to talk to an athletic organization, how do you talk to them? How do you approach them? What do you say? Well, it's very simple. If I could show you a way to increase your oxygen availability, would that be of interest to you as an athlete? And I would ask every single one of you on this call, or anybody that listens to this recording, if you could increase your oxygen availability, would it be of a value to you as an athlete? Of course it would. That's why we all do cardio. But here's the difference. You can do cardio, 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 cardio. Think about this. I ask my athletes this all the time. How many of you know somebody that doesn't do nearly as much cardio workout as you do, but they can go out there and run double the amount of time and distance that you do? And it's mind-boggling. You think, wait, I do cardio all the time. How do you get to go further? Your lung capacity might be this big. Their lung capacity might only be this big. But if they're using 100% of their oxygen availability, and you are only using 10 or 20 or 30 or 50% of your oxygen availability, this athlete that has smaller capacity is going to be able to perform better. That's just the way it is. So it's not always about more cardio, more workout, more workout. It's about maximizing the amount of oxygen we're consuming, maximizing the amount of the calcium, sodium, potassium, those minerals that we are consuming, maximizing the utilization of the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the fats that we're consuming. See, that's what I really focus in, is how do we maximize utilization? I own a nutrition company. The name of my nutrition company is Restore Health Plus. And within my nutrition company, my motto is nutrient utilization is more important than nutrient consumption. Let me say it again. Nutrient utilization is more important than nutrient consumption. Water is a nutrient. If we can increase the utilization of that nutrient, we have increased our hydration. We know we increase the ability for those water molecules, increase the ability of hydration by what is called microclustering. Microclustering only occurs with electrolysis, which is the usage of electricity and electrolyte minerals. That process creates electrolysis. So we've talked about the value of keeping the acid down, and in doing so, it leaves more calcium for the bone growth, more magnesium and potassium and that calcium and sodium for our electrolyte balance and performance. But it's also important for us to address the microclustering. Often people don't realize, because we can't see it with our eyes, that any water that is dead, those water molecules, microscopic water molecules, start clumping more and more and more and more together. And the more water molecules that clump together, what we refer to as sticky water, the more they clump together, the larger the cluster. The larger the cluster, the less absorption into our tissue sites. You'll get to see a demonstration. You want to make sure and follow what Bogdan and Igor are doing. And when they do a demonstration of how the water works and how electrolysis works, you want to pay attention because they'll show you a demonstration where we can actually take tea bags. Now, you all know to make tea, you have to have hot water. And you drop the tea bag in it and you put a lid or a top on it to hold in the steam, right? Well, what is steam? Steam is microscopic water. It's tiny little particles of water. We have to create that, though, with steam in dead water. With active microclustered water, cold microclustered water, you're going to see them demonstrate for you. We'll take a cold glass of microclustered water with the tea bag, go like this a few times, and you will have tea. To make tea with cold water, the only way that can occur is if we've broken those larger clusters of dead water into smaller clusters, and then absorption into those tea bags, we call them tannins, as it absorbs in there because they're smaller water. Now we're able to extract the nutrients, the flavors, the herbs from those tea. That same process now applies within our body. As athletes, often we think about detoxification. Often people think to detox, we have to put something in that pulls crap or stuff out of our cells. See, very, very, very little, if anything, can be pulled out of a cell. Instead, it has to be pushed through the cell. Toxins within a cell require hydrants or water to push. The more microclustering we have, the higher quantity we're able to get inside and through that cell. So again, from an athletic performance perspective, we've retained the amount of oxygen, the mineral salts, calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium. So we've retained those. We've retained a larger quantity of oxygen capacity from our lungs. We've pushed more acidity and toxins out of the cells. Now you have an athletic body that is able to perform at a higher rate, at a longer period of time, for a longer period of time. Guys, I'm telling you that as someone that has probably worked with as many or more professional athletes in the United States, at least as many as any other person that I know of in this country, I'm telling you the most effective way of improving that athletic performance is incorporating back into their body an electrolyzed, hydrogen-rich, microclustered, electrolyzed form of water. In doing so, ample evidence that shows we can increase that body's ability to perform. Doesn't necessarily increase talent, but it increases our ability to perform those actions, those, whatever it is, whatever sport it is. So with that said, I think we're pushing right up on 30 minutes right now, maybe a little bit over that. Bogdan or Igor, do we want to open up for a couple of questions? Is there anything in particular that one of you two may have heard that you want me to expand on a little bit further? Or do we want to go from here? I'm happy to answer questions or go on a little bit more, whichever you prefer.
I was listening to you. I was like, wow. And I thought I know things about nutrition, but listening to you, I understand it's so much more to learn. Just a quick question I have. before, like, the floor is open for questions. So guys, if you have any questions, Shan is more than happy to answer to them. So I have one question. From your experience, from your experience, like, the hardest thing for an athlete to do is to admit that whatever he did before, well, was not wrong, let's say, was misunderstood or whatever. How easy it was from your perspective for the athletes, when they saw the effectiveness of the water, just to take it on board?
Really was a little bit difficult in the beginning because let's face it, most people think that water is water. Water is just water. We've heard that all the time. Well, that's no different with an athlete. Many of the athletes think, well, water was just water. But after we started really making some changes, and I was, again, with the New York Yankees, once we started making some change, people, especially in the athletic world, hey, what are you doing? Hey, how are you improving your performance? Hey, why is this happening? Then it just kind of started a little snowball. Then it started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, basically every team in professional sports knows about Kangen alkalizing water. So it's a lot easier now. But in the beginning, it was a little bit tough. And that's why I really had to come up with the basic questions that an athlete has to answer. Nothing too difficult for them. If I can increase the amount of oxygen you have available, would that be of value to you? Yeah, that would be of value. If I can help you stay on the field longer, would that be of value to you? Yeah, that would be of value. Okay, I can do both of those, and here's how. That was my approach. Now it's really simple when I reference the athletes, the teams, the organizations, the studies, the NFL players. It's very easy for people to realize, that makes sense. Yeah. Let's reduce our acid. Let's increase our oxygen. Let's increase our electrolytes. Let's reduce the sugar that's being consumed. Let's increase the hydration at the cellular level because of microclustering. That's it. I mean, I said that in less than 30 seconds. And it's simple. We can do all of those things. Electrolyte minerals up, oxygen availability up, detoxification up, performance up. Done.
Right. Thanks, Shane. I have a question here as well. So you just answered part of it, but as you in this system, to educate the people of the hydration, especially the Kangen water, in America is different. Many people, they know about Kangen water. They are more educated in the hydration in this way. In Europe is quite different. That's why we have Najik only 15 years here and you have 20 years there. So how to educate the people, the rest of the people, not only the athletes, but the rest of the people, to educate them in this way, how to hydrate themselves well, and why this is good, and why it's okay to drink Kangen water.
So, first and foremost, most of my presentations, when I get hired to go speak at big events or whatever it is, wherever I go, most of the time people think, oh, well, he's an athlete and he's talking about athletics, so this might not apply to me because I'm not an athlete. There's a statement that I make in every presentation. We are all athletes on different fields of performance, meaning it's no more important to me as an athlete on my football field than it is to you as a mother trying to take care of 3 kids every day. Those moms that are trying to take care of a family, they are the athletes. Those dads that are putting in 10, 12 hours a day to put food on the table for the family, those are athletes. Those grandparents that are trying to get through every day so they can spend more time with their grandkids and teach good lessons and teach good values and morals and things like that, those are good athletes. We are all athletes on different fields with different performance requirements. So what I'm sharing with you as an athlete, I would share the same thing with that mother of 3 kids and help her understand or ask her the important question to her, meaning when I ask an athlete, if I could keep you on that field longer, would it be important to you? Yes, it would. So as a mother of 3 or 4, if I could get you to have a little more energy, say 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when that mid-afternoon tired hits, if I could help you have more energy a little longer period of time, would that be of value to you? Of course it would. So that's what I try and really help people understand. This is no different for an athlete than it is for any other person out there. And once we help people understand that as a human being, every one of us roll out of bed in the morning and say, I want to improve my performance as a human being. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better mom. I want to be a better member of the church. I want to be a better member of society. I want to be able to spend more time doing things and helping people and giving every day. Just like an athlete rolls out of bed and says, I want to perform better on that field. So the message is the same. It's just relating it to what their interest is. And that's really how I've tried to explain it to everybody. We are mimicking the laws of nature. I believe, this is my own personal belief, that God created things like lightning for a very, very specific reason. One of which is to give energy to this earth. And in doing so, where does lightning hit more often than anywhere else? The water. And it creates a process. It's a vital part of balance on this earth for that lightning to hit that water. And that's exactly what we're doing with our technology that sits at our sink. We're mimicking the very laws of nature. So that was kind of a long answer, Igor. I apologize, but hopefully it made sense.
That's fine. Thank you. About the mothers with the child, we had this experience. My wife had the experience, like our son, the youngest one, he's 3. And when she was breastfeeding, basically, she was sleeping not very well during the night because the baby wants to eat. And then the morning she wake up and she was fine, full of energy. She didn't feel any tired. And she was wondering, why is that? Like, basically, she couldn't understand where that coming from. Because other mom says, oh, I'm wrecked. I'm so tired. And then we realized that comes from the Kangen water. Yeah, and it works, guys. It works, basically, for sure.
We have John was, I think he wants to ask a question.
Yeah, hello.
Go ahead, John.
Hi. I'm sorry if I phrased this poorly. I'm going to try to phrase my best. I didn't quite think it beforehand. It's kind of popped in on the moment. But I think my question would be, in the scientific world, I think that Kangen water is still being discussed, right? And it's still they're being, skeptical on the product. I'm quite sold on it, but my job is, of course, study it and find questions for both sides. And I think my question to you would be, for you, it seems like it's set in stone, like it's 100% good and it changes your life. But why is it that people still find it skeptical? And how would you deal with these things? Like, when would it be about time for them to find out that it does help? Or is there any questions that they ask that make you think and you still can't answer up to this day? You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, John, that's a very good question, and it's very valid. And you guys, especially over there, because it's not quite as advanced with the time being there. It's only been there 15 years. It's been here 20 plus years. So, and we still get that question here. I personally always try and take it back to the laws of nature. I don't think any of us on this call or in this country or your country or any other country, I don't believe there's anybody that is smarter than who developed this earth. Okay, whatever your belief system is, whether it's God, whether it's whatever it is, I believe that if we can go back and say we, our company, Enagic, Song and Water, is at least trying to mimic those laws more so than anybody else. Now, if someone can show me something else that's being done, okay, you can't go back to, say, reverse osmosis. That's dead water, so you can't say that that's mimicking those laws. We at least are trying and continuing to advance in mimicking those laws of nature. So, not that that's going to answer every question, John, but it's very hard for people to refute or go against or say, yeah, you are doing what nature does, and that is creating electricity, and you are having to have those minerals in your water so the electricity bounces off of. There is science, there are studies and research articles that support that as an important part of natural energized water. It's hard for someone to go against that and say, but I don't believe it. Some people you're just not going to convince. And I have no problem saying, you know what, there's way more people that want to learn about this. I'm not going to waste my time on someone that all they want to do is argue and refute it. You're not going to convince them. I use the example of whatever your religious preference is, think how hard you're not, if someone comes and talks to you about a different religion, for example, you're probably not going to make that change. Might be the same way with water. Some people just aren't going to make that change. So move on to the millions and millions and millions of people that are hearing this information and saying, wow, this makes so much sense. This is so exciting. I see it. You're mimicking laws of nature. You're using electricity. You're using energy. You're increasing hydrogen in the water, which is an antioxidant. Man, this makes sense. Those are the people that I want to talk to.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. That was actually a good response. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, John.
Any more questions, guys?
I want to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you for all valuable information. I wanted to ask how this water changed your life.
Good. First of all, thank you for the question, because I don't get to tell my story very often. And I say this very boldly. As you all can tell, I don't have a hard time being very, very convincing about certain things. So I was born into a family that was very, very health conscious. My mom, my dad was always owning fitness centers, always in exercise, always all of those things. My mom had a hereditary issue with constipation. Her dad had constipation, major issue. She had constipation, major issue, and it was unfortunately passed on to me. And so all growing up as a child and all the way up until Kangen Water, I would have one bowel movement every 7 to 10 days. That's terrible. That is so much toxic buildup of acids in the body, especially in the colon. That's terrible. one every 7 to 10 months, but the doctors would say, well, that's just heredity and nothing we can do about it, or we can give you some medication for it. Never made sense to me. When I started drinking Kangen water, the company that I was working with, Enagic, they tried to get me to start drinking it. Of course, I was doing studies with them. They gave me a machine to start trying it with, and they said, oh, you're going to notice a difference. 1 day, nothing. 2 days, nah, nothing. 3 days, nothing. 5 days, nothing. I got to be honest, by about the 10th, 11th day, I was thinking, nope, I don't. I see the science and I'm excited, but I don't. 12th day, I had a bowel movement that was different than usual. And I thought, that's interesting. Might be the water. So I kept drinking the water. About 5 days, I had another bowel movement that was different, meaning there was stuff starting to come out that, and I was very, very healthy. A lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. I did greens drinks. I did lean protein, low fat. 5 days go by and I have another bowel movement. 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. All of a sudden, I started having bowel movement every single day. And my energy levels went just so high. And I believe that so much of that was simply changing that pH of the body. One of the things that we know is that acidity causes the body to want to protect its important organs. So people that become very acidic from carbonated drinks, a lot of alcohol, cooked protein that creates acid, we notice those people have more fat built around their organs than other people. Why? Because as acidity goes up, the body wants to protect that liver and the kidneys and the lungs. So they have a lot of fat protecting that. I believe the same thing in the colon. The body holds on to a lot of things when we have high acidity. My health was dramatically increased as a very healthy person. It increased dramatically, and I, to this day, for 22 years of being on this water, I still have normal bowel movements. I bought a machine for my mom, my parents, my brother, sisters. It is that important to the quality of health, and it made a huge difference in myself, my family, my kids. My youngest son is type 1 diabetic. If he drinks his water consistently, his blood sugar levels are significantly better than his friends and other family members that have type 1 diabetes. He has a much, much, much lower intake of insulin and things like that.
So basically, Shane, you want to say just take patient, yeah, and because we have the machine that we go give to the people for trial as well. So we give the machine for 2 weeks. Basically, we think 2 weeks that probably is enough, but for some people it's not because their body is too acidic. So some people might say after 2 weeks, nothing happened, Some people can feel this from the 4th day. Yeah, it's so different. So basically, if didn't change anything in your body, you need patience. You need to try more and more and more until it worked. All right, yeah.
Yeah, a good example of that is I try not to always get someone to notice a difference, an improvement before they are able to say or see the value in it. Example, if all of you today started eating one more serving of salad or fruits or vegetables, if you all started eating just one more every single day today, weeks from now, you probably wouldn't notice any difference, right? I mean, just because you're eating one more little bit of salad, you're not going to notice this dramatic difference. Does that mean that it's not healthy? Does that mean it's not going to be of great value to you 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, 20 years down the road when, you're seeing the end, your older years? Of course it's going to be of value. So I don't want anybody to ever just think, oh, if I don't notice this big difference, then it must not be working. Come on, guys, let's get back to the science of nature. Let's do it because we know that that is the healthy way to live our life, and it will pay off for us. It might not be for a year, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years.
Yeah, that's right. Any more questions, guys? On. We are not in the school. Don't be afraid.
I say I have one more out of curiosity. It's more just a curious, fun question, I suppose, but also it is interesting because I think people would like to know. Like, we've adapted to tap water, bottled water, and the pH levels of these waters and so on, and the chemicals that are using them. But before this came along, what would you say that the pH levels intended for us in the natural water sources was back then, when we didn't have these things?
Yeah, good. Another great question. So in nature, okay, with a good, clean aquifer that lightning has hit and it's come off the mountains and it's filtered through the sediments and things like that, most of that water is slightly alkaline, meaning around 8 to 8.5. So why then would we be drinking 9.5? Reason being is today, as you just said, we've all been so conditioned for bottled water, tap waters possibly, cooked and processed foods, electromagnetic fields, emotional stress, physical stress, financial stress, all of these different stresses. We're hit with so much more acidity that we really need an average of about 9.5. Some cases, I tell some of my clients, professional athletes, they're hit with so much acid, I have them drink 10 and in some cases even the 11.5 water. It's going to take a higher pH to bring that, a higher pH water to bring our body's pH back down to a slightly alkaline. We don't want our body to be 9.5 pH. We don't want it to be 9.0 pH. Our body needs to be slightly alkaline. So that's why we are drinking a much higher pH now than the water really was or even is in just straight nature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it actually does. That's very good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Well,
some of these questions that we're talking about, we hopefully Igor and Bogdan will have me back for another one, and we'll do more of just the standard health side of it, how it relates to digestive enzymes and gut health with probiotics and prebiotics and all of those things. That'll be in another segment that we do, more so on just the health side. So, or you guys can have me over to Ireland. That would be fun.
Oh yeah. I'll have many more questions for you if that's the case. I'll be ready next time.
I'll tell you something. On the 23rd and 24th of October, we are going to have, I'm going to organize a Bees Summit in Ireland, and we are going to have workshops during the day. So let's have a chat afterwards. Maybe, why not?
I look forward to that chat.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Right. So I want to say something as well at the end. Thanks very much, Shane. Thank you. Much appreciated. It's very, very valuable information. And I hope this is not the last hour time. I'm not hoping. I'm sure this is not our last meeting. So I want to say that we're going to have like a workshop on the 30th of July, last Sunday from this month. So that will be physical in the hotel. That will be Carton Hotel in Santry, near the airport. So I'm going to send more information on the WhatsApp or an email. So those who wants to see the machine physically, to taste the water, to see all the miracles that this water does, our body to, like, we're gonna do some little experiments there. And who wants to see all this? Very welcome. We're gonna wait them there. So thanks very much, guys. Thank you for coming.
Hey,
Thank you
thank
for
you
having
all
us.
very, very much. I sure appreciate it. Look forward to next time. This is what I love to do. I'll do it anytime, but what we're doing here is truly changing the quality of people's life, and what a blessing that is. So thank you, Igor. Thank you, Bogdan, for putting it together. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it. Look forward to shaking all your hands, giving you a hug, and saying hi.